Okay.
Is that good?
Yep, we are
All right,
live.
everybody can hear me all right? All right, cool.
All right.
Welcome. So my name is Dan Hellem. I'm a manager on the Azure DevOps side.
I'm Dave Burnison. I'm a senior DevOps advocate with GitHub.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
So I'm kind of curious. I'm going to put my hands above my eyes. How many people are Azure DevOps customers? So most
All
everybody.
right.
How many people are GitHub customers? And how many people are using both? Okay, good.
Okay,
so we're getting
very
quite a few
good.
folks here. All right, so today we're going to talk, I got an agenda here. Essentially, we're going to go through a little bit of the product strategy so you kind of understand kind of where we're at with the relationship between Azure DevOps and GitHub, kind of what a recommendation is. We'll talk about the better together investments that we've made over the last year plus. Go through GitHub Copilot for Azure boards, which is kind of exciting. Hopefully people like to see that. Dave's going to walk through a bunch of GitHub AI workflows, some of the newest, latest, and greatest stuff. And then I'm going to walk through our Azure DevOps MCP server so you guys can see some cool stuff about how we can use MCP server for like product planning and that kind of stuff. So when we talk about strategy, for those who don't know, we basically just dropped another blog post on this. We did this at Build as well, which basically highlights here's where we're at, here's what we're doing, here's what we kind of recommend to customers. Essentially the, oops, is it not moving forward? There it goes.
There you go.
Okay.
Oh yeah, some of these animations take a moment.
Yeah. So the messaging that we're basically sending is if you are an existing Azure DevOps customer today and you want to take advantage of Agentic AI, you really need to move your repos inside of GitHub, right? The investments that we're making in AI are primarily in the GitHub space. That doesn't mean Azure DevOps is going away. That doesn't mean we're not doing things in Azure DevOps. In fact, we're going to show a couple of the AI things that we're doing, but the majority of these investments are inside of GitHub. And so when you bring your repos into GitHub, you get a ton of advantages, right? You get, obviously, the AI stuff that I talked about, Copilot stuff, code spaces, advanced security scanning, the great first-class integration with things like Visual Studio Code, et cetera. And so you can bring your repos over inside of GitHub, but yet you can continue to work in things like Azure boards, pipelines, test plans, and use our integration for a great developer experience across both platforms. And so that's how we're kind of seeing things as we move forward, right? Is better together, hybrid mode is what we're saying, which essentially is, GitHub is going to be building the features that want to bring you over, and then within Azure DevOps, we're going to be building the features and unblocking features to allow you to kind of migrate over with relative ease. And so for those who don't know, I thought it'd be good just to kind of walk you through these, just to make sure we're kind of level set. So what does hybrid mode mean? So the first one, which is the most straightforward, is if you have classic pipelines, if you have YAML pipelines, doesn't matter. Essentially, your code can be in GitHub, and you just basically point those pipelines over to use the GitHub repos, and that's it, right? It's pretty straightforward. The second big investment that we've made is around work item traceability. So if you are a Azure DevOps customers today, you know how important traceability is, right? Where I can open up a work item, link that to code, see it all the way through to release. We basically did the same thing if your repos are in GitHub. So now I can open up a work item, I can link to a GitHub branch, I can link to a commit, I can link to a pull request, I can create a branch from a work item, and I can also go into the pull request in a commit and link that back to the work item, right? So it kind of goes both ways. So those are like the two main pieces, and we talk to customers who are like, hey, when are you guys going to get your act together so I can move repos over to GitHub, yet still stay in boards and pipelines? Those are the two main things, right? And so when we opened that floodgates up, we started seeing a lot of people start using the integration, and that brought some really big customers with lots of repos, right? We're talking about customers that not only have hundreds of repos, but also thousands of repos. Excuse me. And so we made a bunch of improvements on scale. So when we originally came up with the integration, it was 250 repos you can connect. Now we're at 1,000. And then we are increasing that to 2,000 probably around the turn of the year. And we have an eye for even more than that. We have some customers, believe it or not, they have like 15,000 repos inside of their GitHub organization, and they want to connect a lot of those into Azure DevOps. And so we're going to continue on that scale journey, making that improved. Another thing is support for GitHub Enterprise Cloud with data residency. For those who don't know what data residency is, essentially is if you're in a certain part of the world or region and you want your data to stay in that region, that's what data residency is. So GitHub offers, I think, 3 regions right now. It's US, European Union, and Australia.
Australia, yep.
And there's a couple more in the queue. I think Japan is the other one, and potentially India.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so we did a bunch of work around that. So that's available now. So if you have GitHub Enterprise Cloud with data residency, it'll work with the items on the left. And then the last thing there is on licensing. We just basically improved that licensing capability, or not capability, licensing, where if you get a GitHub Enterprise license, it automatically brings over an Azure DevOps basic license, rather than have to deal with 2 separate licenses or purchasing 2 separate licenses. It's just basically one. Now the last 2, I talked a minute ago about how we're not doing a ton of AI in Azure DevOps, and that's true, but we are doing some stuff, right? And those last 2 on the bottom there are 2 of the more exciting ones that we're working on. The second one I'll talk about first is GitHub Copilot for Azure boards. So if you're familiar with how coding agent works in GitHub, you can open up an issue, fill it out, and kind of send it to GitHub. Well, you can do now that with work items in Azure DevOps. And so I'll show that here in a minute. And then the other one, which I think is probably one of the more exciting ones, opens up a bunch of possibilities, is MCP Server. So this allows you to bring context of Azure DevOps into things like GitHub Copilot, ask it questions, and actually do things, right? I can take a work item and break that down to a bunch of tasks if I want to, and it kind of just works. And so I'll show some of that here as well. All right, so I guess we'll jump into demo. I'm first going to go through the work item traceability story, just to, again, to kind of make sure people are aware of how that works and how it performs, and then I'll step through the GitHub Copilot for boards. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to go do is just, again, do a quick walkthrough. So here I have a work item. My code is already inside of GitHub. I'm going to go ahead and quickly create a new branch from that work item. So here I'm going to put in my branch name. I'm just going to do Dan demo-1. Here I can pick the different repos. So if you have thousands of repos in here and you have connected, you go ahead and select that one. It's also sticky, so it kind of remembers which ones you're working on inside that particular project. You can go ahead and select the branch. We're already linking the work item. We go ahead and hit create. So you can see it automatically links the branch. Now if I want to go and work on that branch, I'm just going to make a very simple change, just to kind of give folks the idea how it would work. So let's say I want to make the change to the README file. So what I'm going to go do here is I'm going to actually go into the branch itself, which I'm already in. So now I can just go edit here, and I can make my changes. So if I want to go ahead and make any sort of changes in here, I'm just going to do X, Y, and Z. I can go then and do a commit. And here I can say, also add the resolved in here. And what was my work item number? This one was 653. So we'll do 𝗬𝗫653. Now, I don't necessarily have to put in the resolved. If I didn't put in the resolved, I'm still going to link the pull request to it, because it does that automatically once you click the branch. So I'm going to go ahead and do the commit changes. I'm now on the damn demo. I'm going to go ahead and made my changes here. So now I should be able to go ahead and create a pull request. So if I come in here to the work item, I should see the commit. So you can see the commit there. I come into the pull request. Well, here's the one I got to make sure I don't mess up on the fork. So here we're going to, that's the right one, right, Dave?
There you go. Yep. So
I'm going to go ahead and make that change. Again, I already have my resolved 𝗬𝗫 in there.
Notice how Copilot's suggesting the title and everything for you. Yep.
Go ahead and create the pull request. Right, and so that automatically gets pull requests linked up as well. Now finally what I'm going to go do is I'm just going to do a quick merge. We're going to skip all of the checks. So if I go ahead and do the merge, and I come back into here, I should be able to just refresh it. You'll see that it automatically does the commit, so the merge commit automatically gets linked. And then if we delete the branch from here, it automatically should remove the branch as well, right? So it has some of those auto kind of cleanup automation for you, so you're not obviously constantly going back and forth and doing that type of work. And
it set the state to resolved for you, which is key.
Forgot that. So it also changes your state to resolved. It supports not only, you can use, like we've historically done like fix and fixes and that kind of stuff, it automatically set it to resolved. But now if you have custom states, it'll support that as well. All right, so that's basically it from when it comes to like the work that we've been doing over the last couple of years for the integration and different work item pieces linking back and forth to your code. So let's take a look at the more interesting one. So I'm going to go through a work item here where I'm going to go automatically. You can see here now, notice the button up for create pull request for GitHub, right, and Copilot. So this is the button that we've recently added. This is as long as you have a Copilot, a GitHub connection for your work items on your project, it'll be enabled. And you also obviously have to have a license in order for this to work too. So we do a license check when you try to actually create the pull request. It'll go out and check the license to make sure you're legit. You can see here, I'm going to step through a couple things here that are just not released out to this ring yet. But I can select GitHub repository. The new version we have also allows you to select branch and then any special instructions. And so here I'm going to go ahead and hit create. This will go out, and it's essentially what it's doing. Actually, I'll open up the pull request when it creates it. So now you can see I have a little agent working in the background. So it's essentially sent the information in the description. It's taken the title. It's taken any comments that I have, sends that over to the pull request. Sends it over to the coding agent, and the coding agent just automatically created a pull request for me. And so here you can see the original prompt, the information. Here it automatically does the link for you with the AB pound, sends over that information, and goes off and does its work. Now this can take 5 minutes, 15 minutes, right? So I'm not going to step through all that piece, but I am going to show one that we did the exact same stuff on, which is this guy here. So then eventually what you'll do is once the coding agent is done, it'll come back and let you know, say, hey, it's ready now for review. And then from here, I can go ahead and do the merge, right? And so if I can kind of go in here and see all the things that it did, all the changes that it made, put the plan together, put the tests together, et cetera, gives you screenshots of all the changes that you made, just like what you would expect if you're using coding agent, right? And I can go ahead and do the merge somewhere down here. So, somebody made a change to the branch. Ready for review. So obviously it keeps it in draft mode to start, and then it allows you to then switch it over to review mode, and then allows you as a human to go ahead and review the changes that were made. And so here we'll go ahead and merge it. And you should see all the same things that we saw before. If you go in here now, you'll notice that I don't have a spinner on the work item anymore that says, hey, or the PR that's ready for review. It's already all done. So basically the work is completed. I'm done now. The coding agent kind of goes away. Let me just give you a quick little update here too. So I'm going to do the same thing from here. This is one of our newer instance. So you can see now that I also include branch. And then also a nice little update that we've made is that if I'm on the board, you can see, you see the little spinner. Or I saw the little spinner. There it goes. So you can see the little spinner spinning on the board itself. So this allows me to open up my board, see which boards are actively being worked on, or item from the Copilot, which items are working, which items are ready for PR review, that type of thing. And I can obviously see the details here as well, that it's working. So I think that's it for that part, Dave. I guess you're
okay.
Yep.
All good?
Yep.
All right. Well, let me switch over here and talk about some of the GitHub AI workflows. So hopefully some of you were able to see sessions from GitHub Universe about 3 weeks ago or so. We had lots of announcements there. We talked about Agent HQ, turning GitHub into not just where Copilot agent's going to live, but where third-party agents will live as well, like OpenAI Codex and Google Joules and stuff like that. Being able to create your own custom agents, to be able to say, I don't want just this generic thing going. I want an agent that has all of the knowledge needed for Python or for doing search engine optimization or Azure Pipelines or things like that. Be able to create and manage custom agents, providing a mission control where I fire off all these agents, I can go keep track of which ones are still working, which ones are done, and also in that mission control be able to see the past chats that I've had and maybe go look back and see what it was. Bringing agentic code review in. So when I create a pull request, assign it to the coding agent, and bring lots of context into that code review to help speed up that code review process. As the agent's working, be able to say, hey, Copilot, looks like you're off to a good start, but here, we need to refine this a little bit. So at Copilot, go make this kind of a change. Do that in a pull request, do that in the mission control as the agent's working and all of that. Another thing that's really great now is when the coding agent runs, one of the last steps it's going to do before turning that draft pull request into a pull request that's ready to review, it's going to run CodeQL for code scanning and now also for code quality. And a key thing about that is when it's in that mode, you don't have to have a GitHub Advanced Security license to take advantage of the code scanning and code quality for the code that the agents are writing. But we want to make sure you're getting as solid code as you possibly can. And then when we look at the enterprise level, creating this AI control plane so that you can manage Copilot and what custom agents are out there and see the audit logs and see what sessions are going on. Provide that Copilot metrics dashboard so you can see, okay, we've given out 500 licenses for Copilot. How many people are actually using it? What models are they using it? What languages are they using it with? And all of that. So quite a bit to cover here. So let's go ahead and jump into our demo environment. So Dan and I are working off of the same board, and I've got one agent while Dan was talking here. I went ahead and kicked off this the coding agent to do search engine optimization for our site. So that we'll see that one pop up again here in a moment. But where I want to focus on is I want to focus in on this story here. So Azure Pipelines do YAML. So YAML is code. So I'm going to talk about how we can use the coding agent for YAML just like we could TypeScript or Python or whatever. And you can see what we can do with all of this. So as I'm going through here, I can go to the PR that was created. I ran this one yesterday. So here we go. So yeah, when we look at you can see that Copilot did all of the work and everything here, automatically connected us to our user story, gave us a nice thorough description and everything here. And one of the things I want to point out is we're putting little tips right in the workflow. So you can check out these Copilot coding agent tips about, you don't want to ask the coding agent to boil the ocean, so giving it the right size tasks. How do you bring in additional context? How do you take advantage of the code reviews and all of those kind of things? So, but what I also want to go into here is right from the pull request, I can go in and we can see the details of the session that Copilot is worked through. And if I search in here for, what did I want to search for first? No. First I want to search for custom agent. There's where I want to get. So you can see this actually chose an Azure Pipelines custom agent. So sorry, here we go. But we can see what agents are available. If I go back up here to the pull request, we now have this agent panel here. So I could kick off a task for the coding agent right from here if I just wanted it to do a little bit of work. But when we say select the agents, we see our Azure Pipelines agent. I defined a GitHub Actions agent, a search engine optimization agent. We can see that that user story that I assigned to the coding agent to do the search engine optimization, that's running right now. So if I go over to mission control, I can go in and see that active session and see exactly what it's doing, step by step, and everything. And this is where I could actually steer that active session. If I go in and start looking at the details of what it's changing and saying, oh, wait a second, I didn't provide enough context here. Let me give you more context and, you know, update and steer what you're doing there. So multiple ways to interact with the agent and everything. Now the next thing I want to go back to the, actually that's not the pull request. Oh, I want the pull request for, there we go, what we were doing with Azure Pipelines. There we go, review reviewed changes. So as the reviewer, I went in and I was looking at the files and everything, and I didn't really like the resource group names that it used, just rg-dev. No, we're building out Tailspin Shelter, so I want Tailspin Shelter to be part of that. So when I was reviewing the code, you know, I steered Copilot in that direction. If I go down here towards the bottom, we can see here's how Copilot reacted to that. And initially, it was only updating my Azure Pipelines YAML file, but I said, hey, feel free to update any of those related bicep files as well. So by steering Copilot, it actually also updated that main bicep file as well, kind of a thing. Now another thing, if I search for that same thing, another instance here, a little further on down. Yes, this is where. Another thing I did was to say, hey Copilot, I want you to do a review. So if we look at the review that it did, it was actually really good, right? It came in and said, hey, you've got some missing error handling here, which, you know, is kind of maybe a little tricky when you're new working with pipelines, YAML files and things like that. But another thing I want to point out here is what it said about templates and things. So, oh, actually to find that section, I want to do right here. It said, hey, the deployment logic you're using across these three resource groups, there's a lot of duplication there. So you really want to don't follow the don't repeat yourself principle and create reusable templates and things. So how did Copilot know that as part of the review session here? Well, if I go to another tab, go back to my repo. If I go into the .github folder and go into instructions, we can see I've got a markdown file for Azure DevOps Pipelines best practices and stuff. So yeah, you put this front matter in here and say what it is, put it in your .github instructions folder, you know, say what types of files you're working with, and this is where you can put in a lot of things like how do we want to deal with templates and things. So there's a whole section in this instructions file. Now, I know quite a bit about Azure Pipelines, but you know, I'm not in it every day, so I can't just do all this from a blank piece of paper, right? So where did I come up with all these best practices and stuff? Well, now we have there we go. We have this open source repo called Awesome Copilot. And out there is a whole collection of how you can create custom agents, how you can set up these different instructions files, and you know, some really good prompts and things like that. So the global community is creating all these things. So if I search in here for pipelines, here's the Azure Pipelines YAML best practices file. So I basically just took the guts of that file and brought it over to my repo to bring in all of those best practices that now get used as part of the agentic code reviews and such. All right, now let's talk about kind of the organization level stuff. So that repository lives in this GitHub Developer Relations Labs organization. And I've got on my README page here, I've got a quick link to a special repository. If you look at .github private, there's an agents folder in here, and this is where I have created the custom agent definitions for Azure Pipelines, GitHub Actions, search engine optimization in this case. And again, I didn't want to just start from a blank sheet of paper. So I actually went into a code space here. There we go. The code. Okay, I went into chat for GitHub Copilot, and I said, hey, create me a definition of a custom agent for Azure Pipelines. So it gave me a great starting point. Then I went in there and added some additional things because I said, yeah, I'm mostly deploying to Azure and things. But yeah, you can use this to get started and then put in the knowledge that you have about your own compliance needs, or if you've got certain procedures you need to go through before building, deploying, whatever it may be, and build that into your own custom agent and all of that. All right, so now if I go back, there we go. Go back to my, get that out of the way, there we go. Go up to the enterprise level. Now we're talking about the agent control plane. So we added an AI controls tab here at the enterprise level. And this is where, see, we can see the agent sessions that we're running. So Dan's agent session for the multi-select breed filter is still running. My session that I started about 15, 20 minutes ago is already done for the SEO optimization. But here's where you specify which of your organizations are the home of your custom agents and stuff. So then we can see, here's our custom agents and everything. Got full audit log capabilities and everything. But this is also where, in general, you would provide guardrails across the enterprise for Copilot. You know, who can access it? You configure allowed models and things like that. You can say, hey, yep, we're comfortable with Claude Sonnet 4, so let's just enable that everywhere. You know, we're still kind of feeling out Opus 4.1, so we're going to let organizations decide whether or not they want to use that model right now. And check this out. From this, this morning, we said, hey, now it was just launched, but it's already available, and you can assign. Do you want to just let certain organizations decide? Do you want to just go YOLO and open it up to everybody right away? But this gives you that control plane to manage everything there. All right. Let me see. So we've got the agents. Also here, something else I should point out is under MCP Server. Now you can create, I don't have it configured here, but what I want to point out is you can create your own MCP Server allow lists. So rather than just letting it be the Wild West where every developer can pick another MCP server and throw it in there, you can create your own allow list and say, is this just recommended list, or is this a list that you're going to truly enforce as far as what MCP servers are allowed in your environment? Another thing we have up here now is, and Kyle even highlighted this in the keynote this morning, that the GitHub Copilot metrics dashboard. So I can see, okay, how many active users do we have? What's the favored model? What's our activity trend? Are we using it in custom agents? Are we using it in ask mode? Are we using it in the CLI? What languages, what models are getting the most use? What languages are we seeing people use the coding agent with? And other things along those lines. All right, I feel like I might have missed something here. Let me check my notes. Yeah, actually, something else I am going to go back over here and, whoops, that's not the one I want. There we go. I do want to point out also, if I go get into the right repo, if I go into security here, you can see, go into the code scanning alerts and everything. We've got this one broken or weak cryptographic algorithm and stuff. Now you can assign security alerts from GitHub code scanning, and actually you can assign it to Copilot. So you can have Copilot work on all of your security issues and everything. And another thing we see here is security campaigns. So we've created a security campaign for all of these alerts that we have here, and it says there's 9 alerts, and check this out. Copilot says, hey, I can fix all 9 of those alerts. So now you can go from found to fixed really fast. So, all right, I think I hit everything I wanted to hit, and how are we doing on time?
Good, good.
Awesome.
Did you say YOLO?
Yeah, I did.
All right, all right, I'll do mine. Okay, so I want to walk through MCP Server for Azure DevOps. To me, this is one of the more exciting ones that we've done in a little while. For context, actually, I'll bring up the slides real quick. I'll show that. Oops. Is that displaying? Yeah, all right, good. So what is an Azure DevOps MCP Server? Essentially, it's a set of tools that sit on top of our REST APIs, right? And allows you to bring in context to your models, right? So I can open up Copilot, I can ask it questions about boards, I can ask it questions about pipelines, test plans, et cetera. And I can also do things with that. So I'm going to show some examples here about grabbing work items, pulling them down, taking a look at them, generating some work, like stories off of a feature, taking that story, creating some test plans off of that, and letting the model and Copilot do all that work for me. So right now, it works really well with Visual Studio Code. I think that's actually probably the best client IDE right now, using it with Copilot and Visual Studio Code. But it does work in other things like Visual Studio, Claude Desktop, Claude Code, Cursor, et cetera. But it is a local MCP server, which means you can't use it in like Copilot Studio, right? That is a remote MCP server, and that's what we are working on now, actually. So we are planning on building that out, so then you can use it for your own custom agents and that kind of stuff. But right now, it is only local. So let me walk you through some cool examples here that, all right, hold on here. How do I get out of this? Am I out of it? Not yet. Help me out here, Dave.
What do you want
Just end
out?
it?
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
You need to get back to your demo?
Yep.
Okay, just alt tab.
There we go.
There you go.
All right, cool. All right, so here I have Visual Studio Code. I essentially just add an mcp.json file, and then I just define, basically, here's the npm package, right? Azure DevOps /MCP, and that pulls it right in. Here I actually have my organization set, which you can hand put in there, or you can do it as when you run it and start it up and then put it in. And then you'll see I got a couple other commands here, and I thought I'd just highlight this. Is one of the issues with, especially Azure DevOps, it's got a big footprint, man, right? And so if we did all the tools for all REST APIs, we'd have 1,000 tools, which isn't going to work for most clients. And so right now, I think we're pushing around 80, but we do allow you to use these things called domains, which essentially says, hey, I only care about work items, and I only care about pull requests, I only care about wiki. And it'll just bring those tools in, and doesn't have to bring in the whole set of them. So if you're only working with a subset of stuff, it lets you do that. So here you can see I'm working on core, work items, wiki, and test plans. I come on up into here, it says there's 79 total, but in ADO, it's just a fraction of them, so it just shows those. So that's the first thing I want to highlight. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is just show you a kind of simple scenario here. I'm going to go get a work item. I'm going to go ahead and grab a list of work items first, grab one, get a summary of it, generate some child user stories, and then generate probably a test case. So here I'm just going to say, hey, get my list of work items. I only care about features at this point, so I'm just going to go out and grab that. One of the downsides of doing this live is it might take a second for the LM to go get the stuff and do what it needs. So here you can see it says get my work items, which is a tool. Here I'm basically passing in the project already and some of these parameters. So I'm going to say allow. I'm going to manually hit allow on all these just so you can see how it's run. Now, typically the way most of our APIs in Azure DevOps work is we return results in a list of IDs, and then you have to go get the details of those IDs. So here, I've gotten a list of IDs. You can see them kind of in the list. And then I'm going to go grab them by batch. So I'm going to pass those IDs in and go get the details. And in this case, this is basically taken in the Azure DevOps where you see like the list of work items, the assigned to me or whatever it is, most recent. That's the list it's coming from. And in this case, I only care about features, right? And so and I told the LM at the beginning to filter everything else out. So here I'm going to say get 6112 and get the comments and show me the summary. So here I should go out, grab the work item, grab the comments for that work item, pull them all in, and then show me a nice little summary of everything. So here it's getting the work item comments. Here's it's getting the work item. Looks like it's trying to run them both at the same time. I should go out and get those. And because it's using the REST APIs, and typically as long as you're not trying to bring it back a ton of stuff, it goes fairly quick. And here it gives me a nice little summary of the work item, the type, the status, et cetera, et cetera. And so here I can then say create child user stories for this feature. Let's see, only create 2 or 3, so I don't try and go off and create a bunch of them. So now it should go out, and again, now the reason it's easy for this to, I'm not being super specific on everything, and that's because I have a bunch of information in my Copilot instructions on what I want to go do when I go get these create work items. So in this case, it's actually loading up a wiki page, which I've defined of what makes a good epic, what makes a good feature, and it kind of describes all that stuff out. So it's going to look at that, and then it's going to use that as context when I want to actually create these child items. So here it's going to go fetch that basically the wiki page for creating stories. It's going to take a look at it. Come on, baby. Let's just give it a second. We got a few minutes here, right? It did fetch it. It did retrieve it. But sometimes it takes the LM a few minutes to process it. We'll give it another 10, 15 seconds. If it doesn't go faster, then I'll stop and move on to a different one. OK, there we go. So now we also have another tool called add child work item. So it took the context of that wiki page, figured out, took the context of the feature and all the comments, and then broke that down into basically creating a number of child work items. So here you can see a whole bunch of JSON of what it's going to create. Here's the title, here's the description, fills it all out. Let's scroll down and go ahead and allow. Should go run it. And then give me an update. So I'm going to actually just open up that user story real quick, and you can see everything that's been added. Oop, let's go to backlogs. I believe it was this one. So here you can see now I have a number of 3 user stories, and it should follow all of the description that was in that wiki page. So now let's just do something for fun here. Let's go ahead and say, let's see, we got 663. It's a little hard to see there, right? That's 663.
Yep.
So let's create test cases for user story 663. And should go out now and generate a number of test cases for me as well, and automatically link them back to the user story. So here it says I'll go ahead and create it. It's going to grab let's test plans. That's not what I wanted to do though. Let's see if it does this real quick. Uh-oh.
Was it creating a test plan and then multiple test cases under that?
Yeah, but
perhaps?
it shouldn't do that.
Oh, OK.
but that's all right. Looks like it did work, or it's going to work. So now I should be able to open up 663, which I think is this one, and you should see nothing. So it didn't do it. Okay. I'm going to skip that one. Something happened with my instructions on that one. The last one I want to walk through, which I think is kind of exciting here too, is I can actually manipulate and manage my backlog as I see fit. So here I have a bunch of epics. You can see here that each epic is kind of written up in a different way. We're not following any sort of standards here. Here's a really good epic, right, which is like 3 lines, right? So it's really not that good. So I want to basically have a set of instructions that says, go clean up my epics for me. And the intent of it is to come in. Looks like it is, so I'm going to try to create the test case. All right, so I did create the test cases here. Created a whole bunch of them, actually, it looks like. So I'll just show that briefly. There's 6363. Still didn't add it, so it created to the test plan. All right, so I'm going to skip that. And we're going to say clean up my epics. And let's see how that works real quick. So again, it's following the instructions. So it should go out, grab my backlog, grab the work items off that backlog, grab the epics, take a look at them. Here's grabbing the wiki content as well. And then it should do an update to all those work items. So it's going to go actually change the stack rank. It's going to go through and update the priority. Here it's grabbing basically the work item by IDs. So you kind of get the idea here on how this all works. Pretty straightforward. But most of the time where it works really well is when you have really good instructions that are very detailed out. And you can kind of see that as I have displayed here, where if I'm doing clean up my epics, right? I'm telling it what project to work in. I'm telling it what team to care about. I'm care about the category, so it knows which backlog to go ahead and fetch, and then go do the work. To give you an example, so I did run this already once on a bunch of other ones. So you can see here that it essentially went through and created, updated 2 of these. I'll open them up real quick. All right, so if it did the updates, added better descriptions in there, added better titles in there, changed the priority, added some tags on there. I think the main point here is it allows you to do some cool product management type stuff directly from GitHub Copilot using the MCP server. And we hope to continue to build out more tools. And we're investing in remote, so it allows you to actually create agents to kind of do some of these same things as well.
All right.
You go ahead and take over there, Dave.
All right.
Running out of time.
So we have added several resources to the deck. So be sure to check back in a day or two at the link for the session, and you'll find a QR code for how to get started and build Azure skills. And this goes into how to migrate repositories over to GitHub and such. But I'm going to skip past that one for now. There's a couple others we want to talk about. We've got linked to the integration roadmap, and you'll see updates that are out there, keeping track of how we're going with the coding agent. Dan mentioned, being able to scale more. There's work going on with pipelines and other things. Check out the GitHub Enterprise Importer, tools we have for you out there to migrate Azure Repos over to GitHub and bring all the pull request history and map over all the users, automatically wire up the Azure boards and pipelines, integrations and such. More information, we talked about the licensing, right? Now, when you purchase GitHub Enterprise, when you purchase GitHub Enterprise, it automatically includes the Azure DevOps Basic. That's been that way for a while with Visual Studio Enterprise subscriptions and things, so more information there. And then I also want to mention the GitHub monthly Enterprise Roundup is something we do. We've got, things are changing so fast. I mean, we're using the AI. So things, and we're putting out new change logs, new blog posts, new white papers, new videos all the time. So we go through each month and provide a curated list of what's important for enterprise customers, right? And you can check out the monthly Enterprise Roundup. If you go to that bottom QR code, that takes you to GitHub Enterprise on LinkedIn, where you can follow GitHub Enterprise on LinkedIn and be notified of when the next monthly enterprise roundup is available, plus see all of our white papers and stuff.
Cool. You good?
Yep, I'm good.
All right. Just to show you that I'm not lying, it did create all the test cases, right? So it created all those test cases went in there. So it does work. So I guess that's it. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thank you for joining us at Microsoft Ignite's Silent Stages. Please leave your headset at your seat as you exit. Thank you for your cooperation.